All right, we're back here at Community Over Code. I almost called it ApacheCon. It used to be called ApacheCon. It has been since renamed Community Over Code. This is the Build Propulsion Lab, and I'm joined right now with Kris Kersey. We're going to talk about some of the challenges that are involved with kind of starting a project alone, a solo development project.
Yeah.
And you also have a prop that we're going to show off on your project.
Absolutely. There we go.
So there's a little bit of a story behind here. So Kris, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll get started.
Okay, I'm Kris Kersey. I'm an embedded software developer by trade, and I do cool projects like this, 3D printing. I've got a YouTube channel or two, active on social media, but I like to code and build things out of 3D prints in my free time.
Awesome. Well, I didn't get to see the keynote this morning, but you did the keynote. I was setting up all of our video equipment here, but you talked about your project, I assume.
Yes.
Cool. So, so why don't you tell us kind of the inspiration behind the project?
Okay. So the project was inspired by both my love of building embedded systems and the work that I've done most of my career in embedded systems, as well as my love for sci-fi and Iron Man. And so I really wanted to see what was possible with the technology that was available. And I wanted to see if I could put together a working Iron Man system, Iron Man helmet, with a working AI assistant.
AI is hot right now. I don't know if you know this. It's,
I've heard.
There's a few things on the internet about this AI trend. So we were talking earlier, and one of the cool things you mentioned before we get into talking more about your project was the use of AI online versus local. So to fill everyone else in, you can use online one of these models, like if you use ChatGPT, you're going online.
Exactly.
Right? It requires an internet connection, or you can use all kinds of local models, so all the processing is done locally. Mm-hmm. So your project uses both.
Right.
Right?
Yep. And there's a couple of different reasons that you might want to use one over the other. Obviously, a lot of the online large language models you can subscribe to, and then you just use it. It's there when you want to use it. There are mobile apps and web interfaces for all of these. But unfortunately, that means that you're sharing all of your data to the cloud. It means that you're sending all of your questions, all of your information, and depending on which model you're using, they may have different agreements with how they'll use your data. Whereas the advantage of running a local model of some sort is that it will allow you to keep your data local. It never leaves your computer, and with or without an internet connection, it's available to you.
Very cool. All right, so jumping into your project,
Yeah.
I mean, other than being every comic book nerd's dream to be Iron Man,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Why did you start the project?
Again, it was, I've got a YouTube channel, Kersey Fabrications, where I do a lot with 3D printing. I mod 3D printers, and I do a lot of 3D printing projects. But like I said, I'm an embedded software developer, and I was really looking for a project that would allow me to kind of merge the two together and blend those two hobbies and interests into like the perfect merging. And like you said, as a nerd, it really it fascinates me, the idea of bringing something from science fiction to life. I hadn't seen anyone really take on a project like this. And so I've been working on this one for about 4 years at this point. So it's been a pretty long-running project, and different phases along the way. And so it's been just a passion project to see if I can put it together and make it feel real, not just like a toy.
Yeah, so you said 4 years, and you just open sourced it last night.
Last night.
Last night. So now it is an open source project. Well, what's the URL before I forget?
So if you go to GitHub and you look for organizations, you can find the Oasis project, or you can go to oasisproject.net, and there's a lot of documentation I've been working on there for many months, so that'll get you started.
All right, so have you always wanted to make it open source?
Yes, yeah. So
All right, so from day one, so 4 years ago,
Yes.
you're like, I'm starting an open source project.
Absolutely.
But you didn't open source it until last night. So
Yeah.
what was the defining moment last night? What changed?
So, I mean, you work on a project, and I think you either open source it in the beginning, like day one, first push, it's open source, anyone can see it. But if you don't do it at that point, you're kind of looking for what is that milestone? When do I finally feel it's hit maturity to share it with other people? And that might be that you're not ready to share it with someone because you want to keep working on it by yourself, to be honest, or that might just mean that you want to keep maturing it on your own and figuring out what you can do with it before it goes public, or you got enough bugs in it that you don't want to share those with other people. I know when I code personally, there's a lot of days where I will just code dirty and just get it down, just get it working, but it doesn't mean it would be code you'd want to share with someone.
I like that. Just code dirty. That's. I think everyone has been there. Everyone has done that. Nobody admits it. There's definitely some times where I just throw some code out there just to see if that's the shape of what I want something to look like.
Right. It doesn't have error checking. It doesn't take care of any of your problems. But
is this possible?
Right.
What should this look like?
Proof of concept.
Yep. And then hopefully throw it away and start over. Hopefully. I think companies have probably been founded on that ugly code before.
I'm sure.
That's not a bad thing. Great. So you had an idea. You hacked on it for 4 years.
Yeah.
And you finally open sourced it. So along the way, what do you think the biggest challenge was?
You asked why did I finally do it? And I think it's that notion of when is it done? When does it have enough features, or when does it do everything I wanted it to do, at least for a phase one or something? And so everywhere along the way, it's been a like, am I done? Is it good enough? And so, the first step was just getting a heads-up display running in the helmet so that I can see, so that it was fast enough. And so there's a lot of custom code just to get that response time really good, to get it where when you wear a helmet you don't get ill, right? and then you move on to things like AI, and then your AI takes a long time to respond, and it's getting responsive. So, each component has its own level of difficulty. But anytime you're building anything real time, getting it responsive, getting it to where the average person feels comfortable using it is a real challenge versus just you as the developer.
Yes, I like to think of, kind of the spouse test or my parents test, or could my parents use it?
Right.
And that's I think that's some high bar.
It is. And even today, even though it works the way I designed it to work, when I give it to someone that's never used it or doesn't know what to expect from it, there's a lot of this idea that you can just talk to it like it's another person, but it's a computer program. It needs wake words. It needs to know you're speaking to it. We're not to the point where really determining, just like I'm speaking into the world, is it talking to me?
Right.
We're not quite to that point yet, and so you need to treat it more like your home assistant, or your Google wake words, or your Alexa wake words. And if you treat it more like that, it does a pretty good job.
Great. Well, you had mentioned earlier as well that you also used AI to help you work on your AI assistant.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's some inception going on there.
A little bit.
But yeah, so you've been writing software for a number of years at this point. Mm-hmm. What is both your favorite thing about these AI tools that help you, and your least favorite thing?
So my favorite thing about using these AI assistants is really the idea of, I am not familiar with a new technology. I'm not familiar with a set of APIs. And so, the typical way of dealing with old APIs is you go find the documentation, you read through the APIs, and you learn the API by reading or by sample code or whatever. The AI assistants for coding are really good at, I need the API to do this, or can you give me some bring up API? And so I feel like it's a lot faster than reading through documentation. That's my favorite part.
I like that. That's a great answer.
Yeah. And the least favorite part, of course, is when you go to learn, new code or whatever, and it is just wrong. It's not familiar with the API also. It tries to help you, because I've learned one thing about AI assistants that is a little annoying is they're a little pleasing. They try to give you the correct answer even when they don't know it. And so you get the hallucinations. and they're just wrong, and you end up in the API documentation anyway.
Yeah, so your favorite thing and your least favorite thing are very similar.
Very
it sounds
similar.
like, yeah. So that's
when
that's,
it works
when
well,
it works, yeah.
then I'm happy with it. But when
Yeah.
it fails, then you're back to old school anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, but as you mentioned, you still have to have those skills to build on.
Yes.
And I feel like that's one of the things that people don't think about as much nowadays is that AI is going to replace everything, but when you get the poorly generated code,
Absolutely.
you know.
One thing I've learned about using AI all this time is that if you don't know how to ask it the right questions, if you don't know what you're looking for, if you're hoping it will answer it A to Z for you, it typically doesn't do a great job at that. But as a developer who knows what I want and knows what the expectations are, it does a really good job of giving me very specific answers to specific questions. And I'm able to use it as a springboard for ideas. And it's very good at just being kind of an assistant, as being, can I bounce an idea off of you? Does this make sense to AI from a language perspective? Like, does all of this work conceptually?
Yeah.
It's pretty good, particularly if you're working on a solo project like this, or if you're a remote worker and your coworkers aren't around and you just need to bounce an idea real quick.
That's great. That's really good. So AI to help generate AI, but watch out for the AI they're using to generate the AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, this is good. This is great. All right, Kris. Well, we're at time here, so I want to thank you for coming on the show today. Why don't you hold up your helmet one more time and tell our users again where you can find out about Project Oasis?
Yes. The Oasis Project is available at oasisproject.net. There's a YouTube channel as well for the Oasis Project. And you can find out about it on GitHub at the Oasis Project organization.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And we'll keep streaming all week. So tune in again, and we'll see you next time on the Build Propulsion Lab. Thank you.